All right, guys, welcome. So today we're for the monthly members meeting in the TIAG community, the Independent American Gardener. Our motive is to deep dive into some herbology. We have our certified herbalist with Lulus Garden, Danielle Bork here. She's going to take us through some conversation on yarrow as well as red raspberry, and you may or may not touch on dock, I believe. We're gonna talk just a little bit real quick before I turn the time over to Danielle to talk a little bit about the importance of the medicinal garden. First of all, I don't need to hash this out with you. I think really, frankly, most people understand the concepts and the context of having a medicinal garden. But when we're talking permaculture and we're talking about a regenerative landscape and we're talking about building a food forest and we're talking about having your food at home base being totally self-sufficient, a lot of times people will leave out the pollinators or the root crops, the rhizosphere, anything that brings in a sense of diversity in the pollination world, because most of the time pollinators are attracted to the trees that are budding, and like red buds, for example, different flowering species of the fruits and the veggies that we're gathering. And so it's not a key focus specifically for people to plant in diversity things like yarrow. But yarrow is a dynamic accumulator. It will actually bring in nitrogen, fixed nitrogen in the soil. And there are some other things that I don't know about yarrow, and as well as red raspberry. And that's why we got Danielle on here today. She's going to help us understand a little bit more. And one of the things that I personally do in my practice as a permaculture designer, and also when working with my clients and trying to get really involved with, oh, that's interesting. If I drop off here, it's because I just got booted out of my own program. So let me know if we get skippy here. But in my personal practice, one of the key things that I like to do is to implement what I call the rule of three. So the rule of three is, number one, your core crop supported by a dynamic accumulator, and then your pollinator species, and very specifically in your pollination and your dynamic accumulator set a nitrogen fixer. Most people in the conventional gardening sense will try to group things together in companion planting, but they leave out the whole piece of dynamic accumulators. Down in the comments of this video on YouTube, and for those of you that are participating from membership in the Independent American Gardener community, I'm going to link you to the dynamic accumulator database that was published just very recently by another organization. I don't remember exactly the name of the organization that did it, but it's like 500 plants on an Excel sheet that will give you the details on what nutrient it accumulates and the parts per million that it does so. And it's incredibly useful from a design perspective to be able to look at one plant and say, okay, here's my zone, here's my plant, my core yield plant. Now I want to add in my diversity in pollination species, medicinal garden species, things that are going to be beneficial for a yield, but also for the ecology. And in that process, I want to know what I'm fixing, what nitrogen sources, what phosphate sources, what is the whole makeup going to do to the soils? Because ultimately the goal of companion planting is to sustain and regenerate your crop, your yield, right? Your space that you're cultivating. And the reason we companion plant is so that these plants support this plant like a good companionship. But if we're not looking at what the soil is going to do long term with the plants we're putting in the ground, then we're missing a whole piece in the companion planting perspective. So I'm going to encourage you to look into dynamic accumulators and study into the dynamic accumulator database. It's a totally free resource, published very recently in affiliation with a permaculture organization and the USDA. And it is probably the most comprehensive dynamic accumulator database or anything to do with dynamic accumulators that I've ever seen. It will list the common name and the scientific name for proper identification. And it doesn't tell you the zoning requirements of every species. You're going to have to do that research yourself. But you can filter based on the nutrient, the NPK value that you're looking for. And you can say, hey, this is the the nitrogen sources, let's click on nitrogen, and it'll filter everything to show you the nitrogen rich species, most dense down to the least dense. And you can do the same thing for every other nutrient. And so it's a super valuable resource. That being said, though, now that we all understand the importance of having a diversity in the dynamic accumulators and in the pollination, one of the yields that people often skip over is medicine. When we're growing a garden or we're producing some kind of food surplus, a lot of people will go straight to animals like chickens, even rabbits or cattle, and then they'll go straight to vegetables, and sometimes they'll have a couple fruit trees. But from a permaculture perspective, what we want to see is the integration of all those things. And in order for those things to become totally self-sustaining, we have to have that diversity. And in the process of doing that diversity, when you start to bring in herbs, wildflowers, different species of native areas or native species from your area, it's almost impossible to put something in the ground that doesn't have a medicinal quality. And a lot of times people will if you're taking it from that perspective, and a lot of times people will start to look into native plants, and then they'll realize, oh, there's a bunch of medicinal qualities to these plants, like magnolia, for example. I'm in South Carolina right now. We are sitting around the Lexington area and trying to get involved with the local climate here. I've been studying it for the last couple of weeks, tented like kind of sparsely, and then just intensively the last couple of days. And I've been coming across a lot of information on magnolia. There in the Chinese culture, magnolia is not only a food source, but also a medicinal source. And there's lots of good information out there on the web that I can't teach you because I'm just not qualified to do so, about magnolia. But despite my lack of being a qualified, certified to be able to give you those recommendations, we do have a certified herbalist with us. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass the time over to Danielle Bork. We're going to talk just briefly on a couple different topics. She's going to deep dive into the material that she brought. I don't know exactly what we're going to get into based on her material, but then from there, we're hoping to have a little bit of a dialogue on some of this. If any members, and we did this last minute, kind of published this in the last like 24 hours that we were going to do this improv meeting here. And so we might not have many members join on, but if we do, then we'll have some open Q&A dialogue with them as well before we call it an end today. So stay tuned, and Danielle, I'll turn the time over to you.
All right. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. So I can figure out how to do that real quick. Let's see. Can you see my screen yet? I don't know how to make this big. Can you see my red raspberry? Okay. Okay, so really quick, just to show you this. This is a book that I have been putting together with the herbs. With this book is called the Herbal Plant Profiles. And in this book, I have about 49 different herbs. And so we're only going to talk about 3 of those tonight. But in this, it contains these herbs. And in each one of these profiles, they have, I'll go back up here to Yarrow or red raspberry so you can see this. In the book, each herb here will have basic information about this herb. So it contains the common name, the botanical name, which family each herb is in, as well as which part of this plant is used. I list what properties it has in it, such as whether it's an anti-inflammatory, whether it's a tonic herb, an astringent, stuff like that. Okay, and then I give a little bit of description of the plant, kind of a little bit of description of what it looks like. And if there's a history that I have been able to research on that, I give a history that of this herb, of what it's been used for in history, who has used it, how it was used, stuff like that. And then I go into more detail of the different uses for these herbs. And then I have my little screen thing on the way here. But then I go into the preparations, how it's which preparation it's used, such as tinctures, infusions, stuff like that. And then the dosage that is typical for taking these herbs, as well as any contraindications that that might come with the herb, such as there are some herbs that you don't want to take if you're taking specific medication, because it might counteract that herb and cancel, or the medication that you're taking and cause issues. So stuff like that that I have in there. And so from this book, I pulled out these three herbs that I'd like to talk about today, which is the red raspberry, the yarrow, and I want to touch on yellow dock. And so to start with red raspberry, I think most people, if not everybody, is very familiar with red raspberry. We go to the grocery store, you know, and we see the berries, and we get the berries and we eat these. And the berries itself are very medicinal and have the properties in them, but not everybody has actually seen the red raspberry plant. And so when you're growing red raspberry, you're going to see the entire plant, and you're going to use the plant for medicinal purposes. You're not going to just use the berries like we would from a grocery store. And so the red raspberry plant, you use the leaf medicinally. So the fruit you eat, the leaves are medicinal. And the rest of the plant, you know, is just kind of left to grow. And so with red raspberry, as you can see right here on the form, it is a tonic. It is something that is used, that can be used on a daily basis. There is no limit on how often you can use red raspberry. There's no contraindications with its use with that. It is used as an astringent.
Hey, Danielle?
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
Can you define for me and also for the those watching, what is the contraindication, that word?
A contraindication? So a contraindication is more of like, I don't know the exact definition, I'd have to look that up, but that is more of like a reason why you would not want to take this herb. So something that might cause an issue or a problem, or something that you might need to be careful of because of a health issue that you don't want to take this herb for, or a medication or something like that, that might counteract or cause an issue.
So like a constraint or a boundary that if crushed may have negative effects. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you look at the contraindication here with red raspberry is an herb that is considered extremely safe. There usually is never a reason not to take red raspberry. It does have a lot of people do say not to take it if you are pregnant, but that is one of the main reasons why midwives use it, actually, is for pregnancy, because it helps. It's a tonic when it comes to the reproductive issue or system, both with male and female. It helps to strengthen the entire reproductive system, especially the uterus. So it really helps to strengthen that. It helps to tone it. It helps to prepare the uterus for pregnancy. It helps even during labor. It helps support the uterus in whatever it is doing. So oftentimes they'll say, don't take it because it will start contractions, but red raspberry doesn't actually start contractions. What it does is it supports the uterus and whatever the uterus is doing. So if the uterus is in labor and contracting, it's going to support that purpose of what it's doing. If it's, if you're not in labor, it's not going to support the contractions. It's just going to support whatever the uterus is actually doing at that moment. And so there really is no contraindication when it comes to pregnancy, but people do say oftentimes don't take it in your first trimester, but take it from the second on. And so that is the one contraindication that I did list in this, because that is something people do need to be aware of, because that's an issue that people are battling on. So I did list that on here.
That's awesome. One more question for you.
Yes.
So you're a certified herbalist, but you're also studying to become a full-time midwife as well, aren't you?
I am.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm actually studying to be a midwife. I am about 2 years into my studies, and will be assisting midwives here this year. And I use this herb quite often in pregnancy.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
Danielle,
Yes.
Two things I wanted to say was that you also gave birth to all your children except for two, right? So 5 out of the 7 children you've had at home with midwives.
Yes.
And then something else I wanted to say, that when I was going through massage school, one of the things that helped us to remember this word contraindications was to separate it. Contraindications. So there's an indication of why you would use something. And if you see a contraindication, then that tells you the reason why you would not want to use it. And so if you break it up, it kind of helps make the word make sense to more people, I think.
Yeah, that's a great,
You know,
that's a great way to remember that. Thank you for that little tidbit. That's a great help for people. Yes. It is important to remember though, that because of the medical field, they do have a lot of contraindications listed on things, even when those herbs might not even cause an issue. And the reason for that is because there's not a lot of funding being put into researching herbs. Most of the funding is going into researching, medication that is used in the hospitals. And so because there's no research on herbs, the USDA and FDA and all of that require there to be contraindications to alert people that they might not want to take it, because technically nobody knows whether it's going to cause an issue or not. But when you are actually studying herbs, you're studying how it has been used all throughout history. And a lot of that history has been through different writings that Native Americans have recorded. Other cultures all throughout history have recorded how they have used herbs. And they list in those writings what it was used for, the element that it was used, how it, what they've noticed from that, as well as any side effects that did come up from that. And so we have that background and that history to really give us that understanding of these herbs. But because today modern science is not researching that right now, we are told that these herbs can be dangerous and not to use them for certain things. So I urge people that if you are going to use herbs, don't just rely on what the FDA and USDA have put on as a contraindication. Look into the herb itself, look into that historical research that is readily available for anybody and everybody out there. And you can gain the confidence of using these by studying that historical use. So you're not having to rely on just what our own science today is doing or not doing with our herbs. Okay, so with that aside, going back to red raspberry, it's not just used for a tonic with the reproductive system. That is something that we hear about mostly with red raspberry, but it is an herb that is fantastic for building up that immune system. It really helps to, it's an anti-inflammatory. So it really helps to bring down the inflammation that is happening when your body is having an immune response. It really helps to help support the immune system and fighting off colds and flus. Okay. It is, it helps with, I use it all the time for when my family is sick and stuff like that. And I do notice a big difference when we're using it and not using it when it comes to being cold and stuff like that. So it really helps with that. And because it helps with inflammation, it really helps a lot with any type of swelling that you're having in your body for different various reasons. It can help reduce that inflammation. It's also really helpful for the gut and for that that digestive system. And so if you're having indigestion, if you're having nausea, anything like that, it can really help to support that digestive system and help get things moving and flowing properly and help really ease a stomach ache if you're having stomach aches. It's really great if you're constipated. I really like to mix yellow dock and red raspberry for constipation because they're both really great on that. And it helps a lot with diarrhea, which is fantastic, especially for little kids and they're having that Red raspberry is a very comforting herb that is just really comforting to the entire system. And there is no age limit on how young a kid can be to take this. You can give this to a baby if they're having colic and some stomach issues. That red raspberry is very comforting and calming to their stomach. So this is all really great for that. It's also really great for, women who might be having menstrual cramps. I like to mix this with cramp bark, and it really helps to ease that cramping and that pain that they might be feeling. It also just is really good for any cramping in general. So is cramp bark. So being able to mix that for any cramping, leg cramping, stomach cramps, anything, and it really helps to ease that. Okay. So, let me move on. The preparation and dosage is really kind of the same for all three herbs that I am going to touch on. So I will talk more about how it's prepared in just a minute. So yarrow goes by several different names, just as any other plant. But this plant is a fantastic plant. Yarrow is really good for bleeding. So if you ever have a nosebleed, if you happen to have any type of bleeding, a wound, stuff like that, you can put yarrow on it and that will stop the bleeding and help keep you from hemorrhaging. I like to really mix yarrow with shepherd's purse, because shepherd's purse is also fantastic for any type of bleeding, any hemorrhage at all. And mixing those two together really just stops that bleeding really quickly and really helps save lives when it comes to hemorrhages. Let's see, yarrow is an antifungal and an antimicrobial, so it's really good to help fight off those infections that you might be having inside your body. It's a diuretic, so also helps allow your body to create urine to help flush out the infection within your system, which is important in any type of infection, whether you have a cold or a flu or yeast infection or any type of infection. You need to get that flushed from your system. And so being able to get having herbs such as this or dandelion, cleavers, stuff like that, there are diuretics that can help flush the system is really important. Jamie, did you have a question?
I do, yeah. I'm learning a lot. So one of the things that I love about yarrow is that it has so many uses medicinally. I have a bunch in my cupboard right now. I got my camper right here behind us, right? It's up in the cupboard, and we use it pretty comfortably, but it in the garden, it's an attractant for different pollinators and brings in beneficial pests as well. And then at the same time, it's a dynamic accumulator. Like I said before in the beginning, it fixes nitrogen. So when we plant out yarrow, I plant it around my fruit trees, my berry bushes, anywhere that I have a fruit set as my yield. And then I'm able to then harvest that medicinally as well. And so it was less of a question and more of I wanted to make a point, is that yarrow grows in so many places around the country. It is considered a wildflower. It just blooms all over the place, and it does have a lookalike that's toxic, several actually. I don't remember what all of their names were, but I wondered if maybe you knew of some lookalikes or versions of similar flowers or species that we should avoid.
Yeah, there's actually one that is Queen Anne's lace that actually grows here in Missouri. And so that grows in a lot of other areas too, but here in Missouri, that's the one that I'm finding a lot that is very similar to that. And they look almost identical. So it can be really hard to tell which one is which. And so if anybody studies plant families, the way you can tell the difference between a plant is oftentimes by the stem. And I'm going to be honest here, I don't know the stem of yarrow because I have not actually gone out to really look at the yarrow in my yard deep enough to understand the stem. But each plant family, the stems grow differently. So like with the mint family, they have a square stem. And so anytime you see a plant that has a square stem, you know it's from the mint family and it's going to be edible. And so every plant family has a different shaped stem. And so you can identify a poisonous plant versus a non-poisonous plant, or an edible plant versus a non-edible plant by the stem and the plant family. And so being able to tell the difference between the plant family of Yarrow and these other ones that are lookalikes can really help you to know, can really help you to identify the plant that you're looking at, as well as really close things such as the leaves and how many petals each flower has and stuff like that, because there will be slight differences with each plant, even if it's a lookalike.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yes.
So is Queen Anne's lace, is that a poisonous one? Because I thought that had benefits too.
It does. Well, actually, almost every plant has benefits, even if it's poisonous. So that's so that's kind of a.
But I was wondering
I'm
how to tell the
muted.
difference
I'm so
between that and
sorry.
Yarrow. But
I'm so sorry, I was muted. Did you hear what I said?
I heard you say that all plants have benefits, sometimes even if they're poisonous.
Yes.
And you said something about Queen's Anne lace does have some benefits, but I didn't hear after that. And I was just going to say that I have been wondering how to tell the difference between Yarrow and Queen Anne's lace, because they look so different. So similar to each other. But I don't know very much about Queen Anne's lace, so I was wondering if you knew what the difference was between that and Yarrow benefits, or
to be honest, I have not done too much research on Queen Anne's lace. I didn't even know about that plant really until I moved here. So that is one that I am just recently starting to look into. So as I find out more, I will relay that information to you.
fabulous.
Another one that it is often confused with is poison hemlock. I think that's one that Shaman might be thinking of. So that one is poisonous. And so, but they do look alike. So being able to know the differences between each plant is important. And so later I can definitely put together a little list of the differences between each plant, and we can post that up with the video so people can be able to see how to recognize those. I think that would be helpful for people to actually recognize, especially because there are so many plants that look like Yarrow. And Yarrow is actually considered, or has been considered all throughout history, as life medicine. I mean, it is, there is not one thing that I have not found is helpful with Yarrow yet. I mean, Yarrow helps with almost every single thing that I have come across. It is, we've been using Yarrow a lot in our family. It helps a lot when you are sick. It is fantastic for the digestive system. It really helps to support, the stomach, especially if you are a diabetic, because you get the diabetic, you tend to have stomach issues. And a lot of stomach pain. And this Yarrow really helps diabetics with that. It really helps to calm that stomach. It helps to get those stomach juices going, really helps to keep the digestive system functioning especially when diabetes is shutting down the digestive system. So Yarrow is fantastic for that. It is fantastic for any type of bleeding ulcer inside the stomach. It really helps to heal that and put a stop to that bleeding. It is an herb that has been used with Chinese medicine for years, for centuries actually. And so it is one that is fantastic in all different ways. It fights infections. So if you have an infection, just a wound, you can use this. You can take the leaves and mash them up, and you can put them right on that wound. And not only will it stop any bleeding from that wound, but it will also help fight any infection that might be starting in that wound, and really help to help clean that out. And it also helps with the healing faster of the wounds. So it is fantastic for all of that. It also helps soothe muscle spasms and cramping. So adding that to your red raspberry cramp bark is also another fantastic thing. Then you get, you know, you get the benefits of soothing the cramp, but also making sure you're getting the vitamins and the healing with those muscles as well with that. It's really great at bringing circulation. So not only stopping that cramp, but bringing the circulation into where those muscles are, which is really important when you're cramping. You need that circulation going. So this helps with so many different things. And so you just kind of read over this little chart. It's great for, you know, earaches, stuff like that. There's so many things that's hard to cover everything. I couldn't even cover everything when I was making this book with it because there's just so many things. There's just not one thing it doesn't cover. You can use this for an eye wash. It's fantastic if you have you're having issues with your eyes, being able to make a tea with this and wash your eye with it. And it really helps with the healing and the circulation in the eye. Fantastic for that. And so with this one, there's the contraindications with yarrow is if you happen to be allergic to anything within the plant family, then you might want to take some caution because you don't know if you're going to be allergic to this or not, since it's in the same family as something else that you might be allergic to. So take caution with this herb and just be aware that if you are allergic, you know, you might have a reaction to this. Yarrow is one that they do say that during pregnancy, only take it on the outside of your body, use it external, such as salves, wounds, stuff like that, and not internal. And this is because yarrow is also an abortifacient. So this can mean that it can cause the uterus to cramp, contract, which can cause an abortion. I have not heard of very many cases of this, but it is because it is listed as an abortifacient. It is one to be cautious with that. So they do say don't use this during pregnancy, except for after labor. If you're trying to help with a hemorrhage or heavy bleeding, stuff like that, it's really good for heavy menstrual periods. You can take this with cramp bark to not only help with the cramping, but also help slow a heavy period. So that's fantastic for that. Yarrow might also interfere with some blood thinning medications. So just as cayenne is a blood thinner. So you want to be careful when you're taking this. If you're on blood thinning medications, I would avoid this or ask your healthcare provider for some suggestions with this, just in case, because you don't want to thin your blood too much. You're not going to have clotting and you're going to cause issues with that. So definitely something to think about and ponder. Okay, and so then yellow dock.
I have a
Yellow
question
dock
for
is
you.
another. What was that?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I love that you said that it would help your eyes. I've been wondering about something because my eyes have been bothering me a lot lately and they've been really watery. And so I've been wondering, and so when you said that, it made me think of what would you recommend? Like how many times a day would you recommend that we wash our eyes with the tea?
It depends on the issue that you're having with your eyes. If you're having, if you're just waking up and having some goopies, maybe from some allergies or something like that, you know, I would probably do it twice a day. You can do 3 times a day if you want, you know, but especially if you're allergic to the daisy family, like it says, you might want to make sure maybe if you do want to try it, I would try it once and see what your reaction is. I wouldn't use it too often unless you know that your body is reacting okay with it. But if it seems to do fine with you, you could use it, you know, there's no limit on how many times you can use it, really. You can use it 3, 4, 5 times a day if your eyes are really needing that good cleansing.
Okay,
But you
awesome.
usually notice a good response from that, usually about 1 to 2 times after using it.
I'm excited to know that because I ran out of what is it called? Eyebright.
Eyebright, yeah.
And which I normally would use. And so I've been wondering what else would be available. One of the things that I noticed though with yarrow that I love is that I had a really bad cut that had just looked horrible. And I was trying everything on it and nothing would work until I tried the yarrow. And it healed up like within just like 2 days, and I had been working on it for weeks. and it just healed up super fast and no scarring whatsoever. So that was super cool.
Yeah, Yarrow is fantastic when it comes to wounds. Absolutely wonderful with healing and keeping that infection out. So you got a wound, Yellow Dock is your go-to. It's fantastic. Okay, so Yellow Dock is oftentimes called curly dock, depending on which area that you're in. Most of the time I hear this as curly dock in our area. People always ask me, well, what the heck is Yellow Dock? And I'm like, well, do you know curly dock? And they're like, oh, I know that one. And so it really just depends on which area you're in, and you're going to get a different name. But this one is absolutely fantastic, because you can take seeds from Yellow Dock and you can actually make a flower with this. So if you have Yellow Dock growing around and you're short on flour, you can just crush these up and make a flour and be able to use to make bread and different things at home. So not only is it great for medicinal purposes, it is great just for cooking purposes as well. It's the whole thing. The whole plant can be used in different ways. Usually when people use Yellow Dock, they use the root for medicinal purposes. They use the leaves. They kind of cook the leaves like a green, and like a green vegetable, and eat those. And so you normally hear about the root when it comes to tinctures and stuff like that, but the whole plant can be used in different ways. So Yellow Dock is a tonic for the digestive system. Again, it is fantastic at really helping to support the it supports the gallbladder, it supports the liver, the entire intestine system, the stomach, every part of the digestive system. If you are constipated and you're having some problems going, Yellow Dock is an extremely gentle laxative. It is so gentle that it is used for kids, because it does not, where other things that you tend to take, especially over-the-counter medicines, can be a little hard on the system and it can cause some pain. Yellow Dock does not cause pain. It is extremely gentle and just really works with the system. So that's the wonderful thing with the herbs, is the herbs are not the things that are like causing, it's not the Yellow Dock that is causing the constipation to come out to be released. What herbs do is it works with the system and supports the system that herb is for in functioning properly. So Yellow Dock supports the digestive system. It supports the intestinal system and really helps the intestines to start flowing and working properly. And so this is a great thing if you're needing a little go-to with that. Another fantastic thing about Yellow Dock is with other herbs, such as over-the-counter medications, you can it can create a dependency upon them, where you're not able to eliminate without these herbs or without these medications, because your body builds a dependency upon them. Yellow Dock does not create a dependency at all. So you can use it when you need it, and your body is still functioning when it doesn't, and when you're not taking it. And so there's no dependency issues with Yellow Dock at all. And so it's a real easy go-to for those things without any of those side effects or issues that you want to avoid. Okay. Yellow Dock is a bitter herb, which means it gets the juices flowing within the digestive system and gallbladder. It gets those functioning and moving. And so you got to have those in your system if you want to be able to digest properly. It's what breaks down those enzymes and things within the food that allows your body to start digesting and assimilating the nutrients. And so if your body is not doing that, this helps get the bitter herbs is what helps get those fluids and juices going, so that it can start working the way it needs to within your systems. Okay. It is also a prebiotic. So you're getting some, prebiotic things within your with this in your system, which is fantastic. Yellow Dock. Yes.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Now, Is a lot of what you're mentioning here. These are really awesome plants. They grow everywhere across the country, right? Red
They do, they're
raspberry, yarrow,
fantastic.
and dock. And there's several varieties of dock that I have heard the name of, and I don't know a whole lot about dock, but I do know that there's a whole family of dock plants. And you mentioned curly dock. I know sour dock is a dynamic accumulator. Is there a huge difference when you're going from like curly dock to yellow dock?
Actually, they are the same plant. It just depends on where you live. They have different common names, but they are
Interesting.
all the same plant. So with a plant, they all have a botanical name, and that they only have one botanical name. And so no matter where you live, no matter what state, what country, if you look it up by the botanical name, you're going to find that plant. If you look it up by a common name, you might have a hard time finding it, because every plant can have multiple common names depending on where you're from. And so that's why every herb has a botanical name, so that you can find it easily. You know exactly what you're going to, and there's no confusion between names. So sour dock, curly dock, yellow dock, they're all the same plant. They're just different names because they've been given in different areas. And so that's why on these sheets, I list all the different common names that this one plant is known by. So,
Awesome.
So I have a question about that. Like, so with this one being called yellow dock, does that mean that typically you will find it will be yellow, or are there different colors of dock?
it's actually called yellow dock because of its root. If you look at the plant, it's green. So let me show you this. I have this this picture here for those who don't know what yellow dock looks like. This is the yellow dock plant. So it's got the red seeds that grow all along the top. And I mean, there's hundreds of seeds. There's tons in this. And then you got the green leaves and the, stalk and stuff like that. So it is called yellow dock because when you actually pull it up and look at the root is yellow. And it is actually used as a dye in a lot of places. It will really dye. So if you're using this to make a tincture, your hands are going to be dyed yellow if you're not wearing gloves, because it is a really strong dye. And so that's why they call it yellow dock. They also call it curly dock because when you look at the leaves, it's going to be really hard to see from this picture. But when you actually look at the yellow dock plant, the leaves are curly on the edges of the plant. And so you have one place that calls it yellow dock and another place that calls it curly dock because of the curly leaves. So they get their names depending on, how somebody identifies it in whatever area they're from.
So another question I have, like with mullein, like the mullein that I have in my yard has a different name than other species of mullein because they're all slightly different. So is that a little bit different than what you're talking about right now? Because
it is because mullein actually mullein has over 300 types of species within that family. I mean, it's a lot. And so if you actually research the one that you have, you'll find that it has a different botanical name as a different species of mullein.
Okay.
So so that one is a little bit different, where yellow dock has one species, one botanical name, and mullein has, I can't remember how many, but it's got a few different ones depending on the species.
Okay. I think this is interesting that it says that it's in the buckwheat family.
Yeah.
So that makes sense why you can make flour out of it.
Yeah, I've actually been wanting to try to make the flour. That's one thing I have not done with it yet, but I would really like to try that. And so it is really good for making the flour. I've heard of people making breads and cookies and rolls and different things with it. So if you want to give it a try. It would be fantastic to find somebody who actually has tried it to give us kind of an idea of how it worked for them. I would love to hear that.
So we had somebody on the homesteading group yesterday, I think, was asking a question about what kind of grain would be good to grow in their yard that would be easy to harvest. And they were wondering if amaranth would be better or if there would be something else that you would recommend. And so I was curious as to the difference between amaranth and yellow dock, if there would be something. I mean, I'm assuming the taste is a little different, but you know, maybe one has more seeds than the other. Like some amaranth was growing in my yard last summer, and it was just like 2 or 3 little small plants. So it wasn't anything that I could really harvest a lot of. But that plant that you showed, you could see that it had a huge amount of seeds. So
Yeah.
with just one little plant.
Yeah, it's got a lot of seeds. And so you can do a lot of that. And you don't need very many plants in order to have, you know, a lot of seeds. Just one plant has hundreds on it. So you could definitely use that for stuff. And it's really easy to harvest. So not only do you use that for you know, your breads and stuff, but you can use that for other things. And it's you know, it's fantastic. It grows right across the street from me in the ditch. Like, it likes water. So if you got a water system, you can just plant a bunch of them over there, and you're going to have them popping up every year. You know, they're fantastic. They really like that wet soil. And
maybe that's
yellow
what you
dot,
should have Dad plant, Jamin. Since he's been flooded out this year.
yeah,
Maybe
probably
yellow
do
dot
great
could be
over
good
there.
for him.
Probably do great. The one thing that I have found with yellow dock is it does not like to be transplanted. I've tried to do that because I didn't have seeds. And so I tried to transplant it, and it has a really long taproot, and it does not like to be transplanted. So if you see a wild one and you want to transplant that, it's not going to work. I'll tell you right now, it'll just die off. So, so don't try that. It actually grows best if you just plant the seeds and just let it come up. And so because of the tap root, it's really hard to transplant. But that tap root is actually really good because it really helps bring up the different nutrients in the soil. So not only is it benefiting the soil, you're getting all these awesome nutrients in the plants because of that. And so this is really high on different nutrients. It's fantastic. And with Yarrow, I forgot to mention, but Yarrow also has a deep tap root also. And Yarrow likes to mine the soil for potassium, calcium, magnesium. It also does phosphorus and copper. And so you're getting all of that from deep in the earth, way up to the surface. And so you're getting lots of great nutrients in the soil. Plus, this plant is full of these nutrients. So you're getting tons of minerals and stuff in your system that you're going to be lacking from other plants that aren't going to have as deep of a root to gather all of these from your soil. So, you know, both of these plants are fantastic with that. Yellow dock also really helps to support the system. It is really good for anemia. With being a midwife, you know, with working with pregnancy, during pregnancy, people tend to get anemic a lot, and their iron levels tend to drop sometimes. And so I always have them take dandelion and yellow dock, because these are great herbs for building that iron. So if you have an issue with low iron, you're going to want to take this. It really helps to support that and help keep that iron up, because yellow dock is really high in iron and really helps support that. So it's great for things like for this. You can add these to actually, I was gonna say you can add the seeds to smoothies and stuff like that. I haven't tried that, so I don't know what it tastes like, but you could definitely try that if you don't want to, you know, grind them up and eat them. But they're really good for those different things, and just really improving the lining of the intestines and the absorption of your nutrients in your foods. Yeah, Jamin.
Just a quick question for you. Now we've kind of covered red raspberry, yarrow, and dock. Have you? But in discussing all of this, we haven't really talked about if you use them in conjunction. I don't know if that's something that would counteract with one another, or have you ever tried that?
Actually, I do use these together. With the tinctures that I make for pregnancy, I actually use yellow dock, red raspberry, nettle. I do oat straw, alfalfa, all those different herbs together, because they really support the system. So whether I use them in pregnancy, but whether you're pregnant or not, those herbs will all help support you in different ways. So you're getting not only the nourishment from the vitamins in it, you're getting it the support for every part of your system body with these. It supports you've got you know, the reproductive system's being supported, you got the digestive system being supported, you've got your neurological systems that's being supported with these herbs. And so you're getting every system covered by all of these herbs in different ways. And so I do mix them. I definitely do mix them together. And I love doing that because then you're getting the iron, you're getting, you know, all the different benefits from every herb. So there's no problem with mixing these herbs together. Yeah.
So one thing I thought was really interesting was that you said that that the yellow dock was would help with iron, that it's high in iron, but you also said that it would help in constipation, which is so cool because I remember when I was pregnant with you kids, oftentimes my iron would drop and they would give me extra iron and then I would get constipated. And so that was just a huge problem. And so it seems like this would solve two problems at the same time, you know, for women in pregnancy, is that they could get the extra iron but not get constipated.
Yeah, that is the problem when you take the over-counter or the prescription, you know, iron and stuff like that. It definitely can cause constipation and stuff. And so that's why I tend to use this more than I do the prescription medications, sending them to doctors to get prescriptions, because nothing is more miserable being pregnant than being constipated. It's just not fun.
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you can avoid that and still get your iron levels up, it's a bonus and a win to me. So, yeah. So I like to do this a lot.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting is how you said that this herb will help to your body to absorb the nutrients. And that is so exciting to me because having some of my own health issues, I've been doing a lot of studying about healing at a deep cellular level. And one of the things they've been talking about is how when we have inflammation and the cell can't actually eliminate, you know, its own things that needs to be released, and it can't absorb the nutrients. And so people who are struggling, and people like me who have had thyroid issues or who have, you know, been trying to lose extra weight that they've gained through the thyroid problem, aren't able to release it because the fat is there to help protect you from the toxins. But when you have inflammation and you have toxins, you're not receiving the nutrients. So then you're kind of like starving yourself, like you're not getting all the good nutrients that you need to keep you healthy and strong. And it's a vicious cycle because then it won't allow for the body to let go of the extra fat in the body. So this is so exciting to me that you highlighted this herb, and I'm learning so much. I'm so excited because I want to try it now to see if it will help my body absorb more nutrients. And it just makes me so excited for all these other people out there who might be suffering from different kinds of health issues, because as soon as you start getting the nutrients into the body, then your body can do what it is supposed to do, and the healing can begin. So this is exciting. I hope other people find it as exciting as I do.
Yeah, herbs fascinate me. I am so amazed by herbs. It's absolutely amazing what has been placed on this earth to really you know, support us in different ways. I love it. And with yellow dock, not only does it do not only does it improve food absorption, it also helps with fat metabolism. So, you know, it's a really good, because of that, it's a really good spring tonic. So being able, when you come out of the winter, you know, and we're all hibernating basically, it's really good to take this. It pops up in the spring. So this, dandelion, stuff like that, are ones that come up first thing in the spring to help your body detox from that long winter that you have just accumulated, you know, built up toxins over the winter. So being able to take this and eliminate that toxin from your body and really allow your body to go into that detox and cleansing mode is really important to support you through the remainder of the year. So those are fantastic. Now, and then, you know, it's, you know, I have in here also that it's used externally for skin cancers and tumors. Again, for treating bleeding. There's so many herbs that help with bleeding. There's herbs, you know, like yarrow and shepherd's purse that help with hemorrhaging, where these other herbs all help with bleeding. So if you, but they don't necessarily help on like a hemorrhage level. So they're more of like small bleeding issues like that. And so because it's good for digestion, this will also help with bleeding ulcers and things like that. So, so no matter what herb you're taking, you're going to be supported in one way or another with different stuff like that. It's really good for bruising and rashes, insect bites, eczema, again, for inflammation. A thing that I have learned about Yellow Dock that I have absolutely loved is this really soothes PMS symptoms, and it's really good for STDs. It treats STDs, which you don't hear about with herbs often, but there are several herbs that will actually treat STDs. And so, you know, if that's an issue, that is something that you can do, is use this. And it also treats scurvy, and it's really high in vitamin C, and that's why it helps with scurvy. So being able to use these things that you don't hear about as a natural treatment for these options is really important to know and really have in your yard, that you can just go to and really be able to use on hand for anything. Because you're not taught about this, you know, in the modern world with all these different things. We're told, go get this from your doctor. This is the only way to treat it. No other way to do this. And I'm sorry, but that's a plain lie. There are so many different ways to treat it. And just being able to know how to do that and have these plants available at your fingertips is so important. You won't be sorry if you grow these in your yard. You're gonna love them. And so with these three herbs, these are often used, any herb, just to tell you, any herb, tea is always the best way to take any herb. But if you have a hard time with taking herbs or teas so many times a day, oftentimes you take them up to 3 times a day. But if that is, it can be hard to take that much tea. So oftentimes people take them as a tincture form. And so you take tincture, you can take any of these 3 herbs that I've mentioned, anywhere from 1 dropper full to 3 dropper fulls, up to 3-4 times a day if you need them. You know, to be able to give your system that support that it's needing. So as you look at this chart, I have all the different ways of being able to prepare them. So, you know, some on the book will be mentioned as a powder form. So powder formers, you grind them up and you can take them in a capsule and be able to take, you know, a few capsules a day like that. You can take them in tea form. And so I have on there how to take a tea. You know, so you'll just be taking 1 teaspoon of herb to 1 cup boiled water. You let it steep for 5-10 minutes. You strain it. And if you want to sweeten it, put some honey in that, and then you drink that. And you can drink tea up to 3 times a day. So if you just want it as a preventative, taking 1 cup of tea a day is great, or 1 dropper full of tincture is great. But if you're having more of an issue like constipation, you're going to want to go up to more of the 3 times a day so that you can get that support and really get things moving and flowing. So how often you take it really depends on what you're taking it for, you know, whether it's a preventative or whether it's for an actual ailment that you're dealing with. You know, most of these herbs can all be made into syrups. You can do them as an infusion. An infusion is just a stronger form of a tea. That's one where you're gonna let it soak more for about 30 minutes to an hour, even overnight. And it's just a stronger form of the tea. And it's just gonna give you more of a powerful benefit than a tea form will. You can use these into a salve. The salves are really good for being able to use externally. So if you want to use that for eczema, or if you want to use it for wounds, you're gonna make it into a salve, and you can rub that on the issue that you're having. Or you can just take the leaves itself and mash them up, like with yarrow. Mash up those things and put it right on the wound. With Yellow Dock, you mostly use the roots when you do a tincture and stuff like that. And so it's a little harder to grind up a root and put that on your wound. So it's used a lot in salves and stuff like that. Or you can use a poultice and be able to put that on the wound. And so there's different ways that you can be able to use it. With Yellow Dock, it may interfere with some medications. So You do want to be aware of what medications you're taking to find out if it might interfere with yellow dock. And if you're not sure, most of the time asking a medical professor or professional is not going to know. So going to an herbalist, somebody who works and studies with herbs is going to be one who's really going to be able to help you know whether an herb is going to interact with a medication or not, because they have more practice in that area than a medical doctor does. Okay. And so, so I'm going to go back here. For those who don't know what yarrow looks like, this one on the right is a picture of yarrow. It's got these like really fern looking leaves, and it doesn't, you know, it's not a very tall plant. I think the highest I've seen it is about 1 foot to 2 foot. So, you know, it's not too tall, but it's a really gorgeous plant. It comes in all different colors. So being able to, if you're just looking for white, you might miss it. So you got to be able to recognize what colors it comes in and stuff like that. And for those who don't know what a red raspberry plant is, because I've only seen the berries, this middle one is red raspberry. And so with that, you're going to use the leaves medicinally, but the fruit you can eat at any time. And that also gives you, you know, those medicinal benefits too. And then I showed you yellow dock. So, and yellow dock kind of pops up everywhere, anywhere you find water. So with these herbs, if you're growing them in your yard and, you know, you want to harvest them and you're not sure how to use them right away, but you want to store them. What you're going to do is you're going to dry those herbs. So there's different ways of being able to dry them. Okay, you can do what this little picture is doing. This is how I like to do it. I just kind of take a little bunch of it. I cut how much I want to harvest. And then I kind of just tie little bunches together and I hang them up. And I kind of leave them sitting there for about 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the herbs. Some herbs will dry faster than others. And it depends on the moisture content within the herb. And so when you do this, you want to leave them up drying, make sure it has a good airflow. And so it can be able to dry easily, and keep it out of direct sunlight, because direct sunlight will kind of, you know, the oils and the things within the plant will kind of dissipate, and you want those in the plant. So keep them out of direct sunlight as you're drying them. If you don't want to hang them up, you can put them on a drying rack. You can put them on a screen, so like a window screen, if you don't have like an actual drying thing. There's even people who use a dehydrator to dehydrate them and just dry them out quickly. So there's many different ways that you can dry your herbs. And once you drain or dry them, you're going to put them in a sealed container. I like to put them in glass jars and seal that lid. Just, you know, close it up and seal it and keep it away from moisture as best you can. Because once it's dry and moisture hits it, you're adding water back into that plant. And now you're going to get, it's going to start molding, because, you know, you have it stored in here and moisture is getting to it. And so keeping it as dry as possible, away from moisture and away from sunlight, is going to keep your dried herbs fresh for as long as possible. It's going to keep them really good. So once moisture gets to it, that's when it starts, you know, kind of dying off faster, and you'll have to replace them. So, and then these dried herbs, you can use these dried herbs in however. You can use these in teas, you can use them in tinctures, you can use the fresh herb in any one of these as well. But if you have them stored as dried, all you have to do is just go grab those dried ones and use them in however you want to use them. And so there's different ways to do that. And so yeah, so those are what I have about those 3 herbs. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, hey, really fast. I know that we've taken the last hour to kind of dive through kind of spitballing, and there's always more to learn as we get into these, right? And so I just kind of threw out some random that I understood. I'm super grateful that you're willing to get on here and share your knowledge. But as I've been watching, I've been seeing your book, and there's so many people that are looking for a resource where they can return back and reference and be able to understand this material for themselves. And then, you know, a lot of this I'll try my best to remember, but it goes over my head when I'm diving into a whole bunch of other topics as well. And then I come back and I say, oh, what was it Danielle said about doc? You know what I mean? And so it's great to have a reference where we can come back to. And just looking at this is an awesome database and information that you've put together. Does your book cover a whole variety of herbs, or can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so my book right here, for this book, I really desired to have way more than 49 herbs, but there's so many herbs out there to cover that just one book can't cover them all. So what I did is I put 49 herbs in this book. And so, you know, with this list right here, this is the table of contents, and this lists all the different 49 herbs that I have in this book. And so you'll get the plant profiles like I just showed you with those other 3 herbs with each one of these. And so all the basic information is covered with each one of these. And then I'm also working on a second book that is going to cover another half. So between these 2 books, there'll be about 100 herbs. And so, you know, we'll have those covered. And, you know, I tried to cover, because there's so many different herbs and so many herbs that grow in different areas, where some areas you might have it, in other areas of the world, you're not going to have it. And so I try to cover, you know, very common herbs that you hear quite often, such as golden seal, garlic, ginger, fennel, stuff like that. And then I try to cover other herbs that you might not hear so much about, like mugwort or kava kava, motherwort, stuff like that. So you kind of give, you kind of get a variety of herbs, and then you can kind of see what grows in your area. And then, you know, what doesn't grow in your area, usually there is another herb, because so many herbs do very similar things. If you find an herb that you like on this book that doesn't grow in your area, chances are there's going to be another herb that does almost identical things for you that will grow in your area. So that's why I want to have as many herbs covered as possible, so that you can be able to see what might grow in your area and how you can use it. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
that's a little bit about my book, but the purpose of my book was to help for that very thing that you said. You know, I want people to be able to kind of have this at their fingertips. When I was learning about herbs, oftentimes, you know, I'm like, well, I have these herbs, but I don't know how to use them, you know, or what are these used for? What ailments can I use them for? You know, and oftentimes we don't know that. And so just being able to have this resource here where it lists the different ailments, because there's so many ailments for different herbs, you know, it just lists those, and you can be able to, and then also the preparations, you can be able to know, okay, I have a stomach ache, or, you know, I'm having some stomach issues. What can I go to? And by looking over this thing, you can go through any of these herbs and say, oh, fennel's really good for stomachs. Ginger helps with nausea. You know, dandelion is really great for detoxing. Yellow dock is great for constipation. You know, you can look at all these different things and just really be able to know right in your own backyard how to use them without having to sit here and really do a lot of research. Because I mean, research is great. I really suggest you get out there and learn more about the herbs, because there's so much more than what I have listed in this book. But I wanted this as a good resource just to have on hand that you can quickly turn to and be able to just go through and look at and know how to use really quick.
That's awesome. And I think that's going to have a really nice tie-in to how we're trying to help people learn to grow a food forest in every yard, right? And put a mentor in every home. And so realistically, the more we can help families understand how to plant these medicinal herbs, and especially the dynamic accumulators like Yarrow or Doc, and then double their intention, right? We're stacking functions. So not only now are you planting a medicinal garden, but you're also able to then intercrop it with your perennial vegetables or perennial fruits. And so now your whole food system becomes your medicine, and your medicine is your food. And this was, what is that, a quote by Socrates? Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. And I think realistically, that's where we need to get back. And today we have this drive and this pull to what's on the grocery shelf. Like, we want the perfect cucumber and the tomato and all these things, but people oftentimes forget that the herbs like alfalfa, for example, are highly nutritionally dense. And nettle, for example, if you just incorporate those things into your meal regimen, you're going to get most of the vitamins and minerals that you need with half of the food consumption. And so there's this whole area of edibility that people are not consuming or not concerning themselves with when we're talking about medicinal gardens. And so I want to make the point that not only is most herbs medicinal, but they're good prime and unadulterated food sources across most of the country.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm super happy that you brought this together. I think we crossed our time over a little bit. We gotta adjourn here. There is one
I want to say
that I
something
wanted
really
to make.
fast.
Hold on
I
one
wanna
second.
give a
I
little
saw you
plug.
pick it up. I saw you pick it up. Hold on. So I want to make a point real quick. We don't have all of the seeds in our medicinal packs that are listed in this book. You have a pretty comprehensive book here that coming together. I'm really excited to see the end result and make that available for people, and help you spread this around. But what we've been offering through the medicinal seed packs, we've been able to acquire quite a good chunk of what you have listed here, but not everything. And so there are a lot of sources that you can get different seeds and different products. But I just want to make the point that this is almost in perfect similitude in companionship with our medicinal herb pack and your book. And I didn't realize that. I think that's actually really cool. And I'm hoping maybe down the road we can make that a little bit more accessible and unify that for families across the country. As we've been traveling and teaching, it's really shown to me that it's a piece of the puzzle that people want and people are excited for. And so the learning material and the resources and seeds to actually get out there and grow it, with the education and lives like this that we're doing, I think we're really going to be able to help a lot of people continuing to work together. And your certification and skill set in midwifery, and as you learn and further that education, and then also as your certification in herbology, to me are invaluable resources. I think everybody should have an herbalist in their community, and I'm super excited that we have you in ours. And thank you so much for being willing to put this together. Real quick before we end here, Renee, Mom, you had a question. What was that?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that we actually do have quite a few of those herbs. Like you said, not everything, but our small pack actually has about let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 12 of the herbs that she's mentioned in there are in this pack.
Good.
Which is pretty cool. And then this pack has 40 medicinal herbs, which also has more of the ones that she's listed. And it has both the regular pack, which is considered more culinary, although those are also medicinal, and it has this pack together. So 2 of the packs that we offer are combined in this pack. And so a good chunk of what Danielle has in her book is in here, which I was really excited to see because I didn't know that. And Danielle, you've done an absolutely fantastic job with your book, and I'm so excited to look over more of it. And it's even more exciting to know that it just happened that we have a lot of the seeds that you have talked about, because I think that's going to be a great resource for our community that when they want to try to experiment and grow some of these things, we've got the resource that can help them. So that's super fun to know, and that's what our goal has always been, is to be able to help people learn how to grow the herbs and use them, and learn how to garden. And now we've got all these great resources between you, Jamin, teaching them how to do a food forest and what that is and how that works, and Danielle having the herbs, and all of us being able to offer the seeds. So it's just super cool, and I'm excited for the families that will be able to learn. And I hope that all the families, when they practice and they begin experimenting and growing and learning these things, I hope that they'll come into the homesteading group and into the TIAG group, and they'll be able to share with us what they're learning and ask a lot of questions, and show us their successes and even some of their failures. Because I know the first time I tried to grow herbs, a lot of mine started to grow really good, and then they got really spindly and tall. And I learned later that it was because there wasn't enough sunlight, that they were trying to reach the sun. And so this year, when I start, which I'm going to start soon, to plant the seedlings, is to make sure that I have a grow light, so that they can grow easier and be able to plant it out there as soon as all of our snow is gone and we have no more frost in Wyoming. So anyway, that's exciting. Thank you, Danielle. This was super fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And real quick before we move on, I got a couple things I want to make sure that people know how to do. How do they get your book?
Good question.
When is it
You can
available
go
now,
if
or is that coming?
my book is actually right now getting published. So as soon as that is finished, they will be available to purchase on the Lulus garden.shop website. And so it will be up there ready as soon as that is available. And so go ahead and look for that. If you're wanting any pre-orders, you can go ahead and let me know at Danny'sCrafts at gmail.com. And we can get some pre-orders available for that ahead of time. I'm not exactly sure when it will be out of the finished getting published. So just know that there will be a bit of a wait for that, but it
Do you
will
know
be
the cost
available
right
soon.
now?
Is that what?
Do you know the cost of the book?
I do have it written down. I can find that and be able to have that sent to you guys so we can have that posted for those who want to know. But
Awesome.
I cannot remember off the top of my head.
I'm
I
super
just found
excited
out
that
the
you
other
gave
day.
us this kind of preliminary or preemptive teaser on your book. It's really
Right?
actually quite exciting. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being willing to spend an hour with our community and get on and be live on the internet with us and just blow this up and discuss some things. I really want to make sure that going forward, families understand that there are resources galore that we're pulling together to make self-sufficiency a reality for you, right? And it's not about how much we can pull together. It's about what's really applicable, what actually works. And we can be online, we can talk about it. I can do an interview with somebody every single day and broadcast it. And it's all, there are so many people out there in the internet that are doing that. What really matters is when we get our hands in the dirt and we actually do it. And when we're out there, like Danielle, we've been across the country traveling and teaching, doing these workshops. And you have been a huge piece in helping us make that happen, but it hasn't been about the online broadcasting of everything that we're doing. It's been about physically getting in the family homes and helping them learn how to do this, from North Carolina, South Carolina, down to Southern California, everywhere in between, up to New York, and helping people understand that the foundational principles of what self-sufficiency is: food, water, shelter, and surplus, and then how to implement that in a systematic way where everything is supporting itself and those things around it. So every element is performing multiple functions, and every function is performing multiple, or being performed by multiple elements. And I think that the herbal piece, the medicinal piece, the plant profile piece, it fits and plugs into so many other elements, all the way from livestock feed and fodder to your medicinal garden for your kids, to an extra food supply and nutrient and vitamin for you, to dynamic accumulators that sustain your orchard and become self-fertilizing. There's just so many pieces in the realm of herbology. So thank you again so much for being and willing to jump on here. We'll go ahead and close it out here. This recording will be live on YouTube for about a week, give or take, and then I'm going to pull it off, and we're going to do some last minute edits and stuff to it before we put it back up in an edited version. And so watch it again if you need to. Now, if you missed out on the yarrow discussion in the beginning, or the red raspberry discussion in the beginning, and then if you have any questions, again, reach out to Danielle at Danny'sCrafts@gmail.com. You can find the seeds, and you'll be able to find her book at lulusgarden.shop. So thank you all for being a part of this, and we'll be in touch soon. Have a great night.